Imagine that you just finished school, have gotten a job, worked 40 hours all week, and you're about to get a check. If I was your employer, before I gave you that check, I'd tear off 20%, give it to Uncle Sam, and say, here's for her income tax. And then, again, before I gave it to you, I'd tear off 30 more percent and give it to Uncle Sam and say, oh, by the way, here's her Medicare and her Social Security tax. Finally, I gave you your half and said, here you go, here's your whole entire check. Wouldn't that make you angry? That's your money. Alan Simpson doesn't think so. And in one of the issues of Modern Maturity magazine, he says that under his legislation, we would only keep 50% of what we earn. That doesn't seem fair to me. I don't know if it seems fair to you. But it gets worse than that. Remember that 30% that we paid Uncle Sam for our Social Security tax? Well, that won't be even enough money for us to support us in our future when we get older and ready to retire, if we were to retire in the year 2050. Remember the year 2050, because I'm going to talk about it in a little bit. But the big problem here is that the Social Security system cannot ensure our financial security. And what's the solution? The solution is that we have to start saving for this. The younger, the better. In almost every financial situation that we can deal with, there is an idea of an account involved, whether it be a savings account, a retirement account, a 401k. The Social Security system is not like that. A Social Security system, the retirement account's not like that. All of the money that you put into Social Security, it is immediately paid to those people that are collecting Social Security checks, which are Americans that have already retired. Ever since it was started back in 1935, the Social Security system has never been secure. According to HowStuffWorks.com, in 1935, when Roosevelt signed the Social Security Act and made it into a law, there were a lot of people who needed these benefits, mostly because of the Great Depression. But there was not enough money to pay those benefits for what they needed. And therefore, the system would then always fund itself forever, even when there was no money to begin with. It would take money from working people to pay the retiring people, and it was just a cycle. And the ratio of workers to retirees was so bad that it meant the workers didn't even have enough money to put into the system. So in the future, the retirement of millions of baby boomers would hurt this ratio, and there would be so many retired people against working people that they wouldn't be able to support them. You might have heard that the Social Security system currently takes in more money than it pays out in order to try to handle this baby boomer problem that we were talking about. But what happens to that excess money that the system collects? The Social Security system buys U.S. Treasury bonds in surplus, and essentially the government, in form of the Social Security Administration, loans the surplus to itself. But did they ever ask us if they could borrow our money? But they will definitely be able to scrounge up that money when the time comes to pay those retiring baby boomers, of course. While the system has never been a fixed number of the times, but these fix-it jobs never actually worked. Another example is the writer Keith Carlson points out in the 1983 Congress, they raised the payroll taxes and extended their retirement age. So hopefully 50% of our paychecks that come back from Social Security would be able to support the retiring generations. But then Carlson said 9 years later in a report that Congress was wrong. And the report said that the Social Security money wouldn't last until 2050, when we're supposed to be retiring, remember? Do you think this is bad? Just 2 months ago, the AARP Bulletin reported that the Bipartisan Commission on the Entitlement Act and Tax Reform, the commission warned that the enrollment programs of Social Security are growing so fast that it would basically bankrupt our country by the year 2035. But if we're only 50 in that year, how are we supposed to retire and make it to 2050? So what should we do? Do we run for Congress and change the system? It's not a bad idea, except the Social Security record shows that you can't actually run for Congress unless you're 30 years old. What I highly suggest, instead of going out in some offlandish scheme, is that we just prepare ourselves for this. If we start saving our money the younger we are, we're more prepared. Instead of, say, if we started at 20 years old putting back $50 a month, by the time we're 65, we've had about $200,000. But if we started when we're 35, we'd have to save $115 a month to get $200,000 when we're that old. So it's always easier to start when you're younger, and I challenge you, no matter how old you are,